welcome back to Trans Heartbeat. My name is Michelle Matlock. I'm your host, and I encourage the use of all pronouns. Before we get into today's episode, make sure you follow, like, share, and subscribe to Trans Heartbeat so you don't miss these powerful stories and voices from our community. This episode is especially meaningful as we honor Military Appreciation Month, a time to recognize those who have served, and today we're lifting up a story that reminds us trans people have always been part of that legacy. I'm in conversation with artist, historian, and storyteller Joe Stevens, who is bringing to life the story of Albert Cashier, a trans man who fought in the Civil War and lived his truth in a world that didn't yet have the language for it. Through music, theater, and deep care, Joe is not just telling history, he is reclaiming it. This is Trans Heartbeat. Welcome to Trans Heartbeat, Mr. Joe Stevens. Glad to have you here. To start it off, if you could just give us your name, pronouns if you choose, where you are coming from in the world, and what you're doing over there.
My name is Joe Stevens, he, they, and I am currently in Long Beach, California.
Nice.
I live and work around the LA area.
Nice. That's awesome. I have been having so much fun just like looking you up and reading about you and all the things that you do just as an artist, a historian, as a storyteller. So we're excited to have you on. This is planning on dropping this episode in May, which is Military Appreciation Month.
Cool.
So we thought, having you on would be so appropriate. But first, I just want to start with you as an artist and a storyteller. What are you up to these days? Like, what are you currently working on? What's your groove now?
Yeah, well, I'm a songwriter by trade and an instrumentalist, play guitar and banjo and upright bass and general kind of Americana string things. I got my start as a singer-songwriter back in the early 2000s, playing gigs and touring around. We were a trans and queer group, and it was kind of the beginning of social media, so we were able to find like-minded audience around the country. I got into writing for theater with this project, actually, maybe about 10 years ago. And it's kind of opened up a whole new kind of dimension to songwriting and making music when you add theater to it. There's more dimensions and a different way of telling stories with that. So
I love that.
Been focusing on that, and what we're working on now is a record about Albert, based on the show, but kind of my take on Albert's story, since we are in a time when theaters are very risk averse and we're having trouble getting the show played anywhere. So Albert Cashier was an Irish immigrant who came to America, and there's evidence that he started living as male when he was a kid in order for him and his father to get work. And then his father died. He was an orphan. He floated around doing farm work, and then when the Civil War broke out, he enlisted voluntarily, and he fought all 4 years in the Civil War.
Amazing.
And survived, which is amazing to me. And then he continued to live as male for the rest of his life. And at the end of his life, he got hit by a car, had to go to the hospital, and the truth about him being born female was revealed. He was court-martialed for impersonating a soldier. They thought he was some woman who was impersonating a soldier who had died to take the pension. His army friends were subpoenaed, and they vouched for him. They said he was there. We didn't know whether they did or not, as we'll never know.
Right.
But they vouched for him. They said he was there, he fought. They didn't take his pension away, but he never left the hospital. And they tried to rehabilitate him, and they had him in a dress. And he died there. He didn't have any family, and he probably was suffering from dementia.
Do you know how old he was?
He was in his 70s.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, it was a big splash. There's newspaper articles that are very dramatic and everything. He lived a very quiet life before that.
Right.
And to the end insisted that his name was Albert and that he should be called he. And he was like, you can't even make this stuff up. He was pinning his dress together to make pants, and he tripped his dress and he broke his hip, and that's how eventually he died.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But to the end, he's like, my name is Albert, and just resisted the whole way.
Right.
And that rang very, very true to me. And how he would have thought of himself back then with none of the language we have today is.
Yeah. So what first drew you to working at sort of this intersection between art and history, trans identity? And when did you realize that your work wasn't just creative, but also restorative?
Yeah, I, as a songwriter, I've always loved people's stories from people that you don't usually hear from. And then as a trans guy, I've always just been fascinated by queer people's stories through history, especially the ones that you don't get to hear. And when I first came out as trans, back then, all there was books. There wasn't much as far as YouTube goes back then. And I remember reading about some of the Civil War stories of soldiers who were born female who enlisted as male, and either they continued to live as male or they didn't. And so, those stories were fresh to me when I first came out, and were very validating to me. Just to have any record of history as trans people was huge. And then, 10 years ago, I think I got an email from somebody who was like, we're writing a musical about Albert Cashier. Are you interested in doing music for it? And I thought, you've heard my music, right? I don't write show tunes. But I was super interested in the story, and they also, I think, wisely wanted a trans person on their creative team. And I asked if could I do it in my genre, which would be appropriate for early American music? Can I do it in that genre? And they said yes. And so I also got to help. It was originally just a play, and they wanted to turn it into a musical. So where do the songs go? Who sings them and why? And how does it move the story forward? And so we really mangled the script quite a bit, and it was fun to bring my perspective as a trans person to bring things out that would really be authentic to the trans experience. And Albert's story specifically, as he was illiterate, we have nothing written by him. We only have court affidavits, and we have lots of letters from his friends in the war and correspondence, but there's nothing from him. But what we do have is that he lived as male for the rest of his life when it would not have been easy. He never had a partner, and he lived a very quiet life. He reluctantly took a pension on the urging of his friend. He was afraid to request a pension, but he did do that, and they granted it to him. And then at the end of his life, he was hit by a car and had to go to the hospital. His last years are tragic and awful.
He lived his life as a man at a time when there wasn't language like we have today. And what do you think this might teach us about identity beyond labels? And how do we navigate telling his story in a way, or how do you navigate telling his story in a way that honors who he was without imposing those modern times, I guess?
We had a lot of discussions about that when making the show, even to the point of what pronoun do we use for him in the stage directions, and
right.
And, I came in kind of a little later, and so I corrected some things. But and how do we tell the press? How do we tell people what we decided to do? We kind of came up with whether or not Albert was transgender in our, modern definition. Was he English lesbian? We can't honestly say that because we can't talk to him, and he wrote nothing down. But he clearly wanted to be called Albert and he in his lifetime. Whatever his reasons for that are kind of irrelevant to us. We should honor that. Because it was so interesting. Some people would see the show, and it's revealed that he was born female after the first act, and then the second act is fighting and stuff. Obviously, we still call him Albert, but some people would switch and start calling him she after that was revealed, and so we kind of wanted to guide guide a little bit, and so we, or people would come up and who weren't familiar with the trans community would call him she, or and we so we had a collective upfront statement where it was, we don't know how Albert identified, but we clearly know that he wanted to be called Albert,
right?
And he clearly wanted to be called E. And whatever his reasons are not our business.
Right. That's great.
So that, people could get on board with that. Oh, okay.
Feel the moment come, let it pass along. I remember the first one, the very first day. There was someone here. When I came, she disappeared. I catch a glimpse in what people say.
The show is called The Civility of Albert Cashier. It's a 2-act, I think 12-person cast. So it's a pretty big show. So it goes back and forth between Albert in his dementia PTSD state in the hospital, and he'll have flashbacks, and that's how we tell the story. So we have these kind of 2 storylines going, which older Albert and young Albert.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
Tell the story through flashbacks he was having at the hospital.
And so is that show being produced anymore? Is it out there, or when how?
It's been a journey. There's quite a great production team behind it. We have a great producer, Christine Russell, who did Head Over Heels and the Carole King musical, and Jay D'Artagnan is the original writer of the play and one of the producers, and we've had a great trajectory. We just did a run in 2024 in Burbank, and then we also did a run in Chicago a few years back. There was a short list of shows that have a trans lead, and it was said that within 5 or 10 years there will be a show on Broadway with a trans lead. Right. And the theaters all had their eye on this list, and we're on that list.
Nice.
Which is cool, but the politics and the election derailed everything.
But it seems like this is the time, man. We got to get some.
I think so. Yeah, we're sort of looking around. A lot of theaters are risk averse in general. There's a lot of redos of older plays. Things that are a little more guaranteed to put butts in the seats.
Right. Yes.
And a lot of theaters that were interested are now not.
Right. They pulled back.
Yeah, they pulled back from the discussions we were having with them, and but we can make an album. We could take it to the UK is another option.
Nice.
Or we can find a theater that's willing to kind of take the risk and
has the courage to do it.
Yeah.
And I feel like I want to be so confident that theater is out there, and the right people are right there. I hope that happens too. And it, I don't know how it is to do, maybe do some smaller venues too around the country that are just like, whatever we're still doing the thing.
There's talk of us kind of paring it down to a one-man show to just to keep it alive.
Yeah, all those ideas are great, and I'm in theater too, and it's the organizations I work with are struggling, and it's just like, keep it alive. It's the thing that's gonna save us all, I think.
Sometimes I want to shout, yeah! They may not think that much of me, but I can be someone. I'm a bullet in a gun. I'm a bullet in a gun. And maybe when this war is won, we'll live better than when we begun. Like a bullet in a gun.
So we know that later in Albert's life, institutions tried to redefine him and strip him of his identity. And so as a historian and artist, what does it mean to you to reclaim that in this storytelling that you're doing, you know?
I mean, one of the things that was interesting, the Army, the U.S. Army website has profiles of different veterans over time that were noteworthy for this or that reason. And Albert had a page up there, and I remember it was very well written, and I was like, good on you guys. Like it was respectful, it was clear, and they just recently took it down.
Oh no!
This, DEI purge that they did. But
so shameful.
Albert, it's just, like he fought all 4 years, like, hiding everything that he had to hide. It just blows my mind.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's an incredible story. I mean,
yeah, and he was in the 70s. The feminist movement found him and reclaimed him as one of their own, and these amazing women who broke the mold and blah blah. That kept his story alive. Like my opinion as a trans man was he probably wouldn't have loved that, but
right.
You know who he is truly. There are enough things that I recognize as like specifically trans experiences from him, but again, we just don't know. There's a lot there that I very much identify with as a trans man, and his story, is so impactful. I think he was a veteran. He was of service to the country. He was an immigrant. He was illiterate. There's a lot of things about him that are, kind of quintessentially American, and he happens to be trans.
Right.
And so just the whole "we were here" thing is enough for it to be meaningful to me, to tell the story about this guy who was maybe not very remarkable otherwise, but it's those average everyday people that make the world what it is.
That's right. And it just, I mean, of course we know trans folks have been around since the beginning of time. And so it's just the more and more we hear and lift up these stories and uncover, these hidden parts of history, or the part of history that's buried, and we keep it alive because we know that the pendulum's going to swing way back. And I think that it's going to just swing all the way around and around when it does.
You're putting such a spotlight on it that the truth is going to win out.
I'm just grateful that you're doing this and you're holding this story and you're telling this story, and that it's out there in the world, and you can't take that away, and that it's, that there's people that are behind it. I think it's a great story, and, thank the stars for Albert Cashier's, just existing.
For his existence.
And living and being.
Yeah. And there's a whole team of people right now, most of whom aren't trans, who are working to get this story out because they believe it's important.
That's beautiful. And I'm, I'm rooting for this show. I want to see this show. So I hope that, someone...
There's some great videos on the website.
Up and go somewhere I can be me. Chicago, won't you set me free? Chicago, I know, is the place that I want to go. Don't want to leave my dreams so lonely on the shelf. Chicago, you've won. Get ready, 'cause here I come. I'm gonna be myself, can't be nobody else.
Is there anything else that we didn't get to, or that I didn't ask you about yourself or Albert Cashiers that you want folks to know about?
There's so many great trans artists out there now doing in all parts of the arts.
Yeah. Who's your favorite right now? Who's like keeps it going out there?
Yeah, there's so many, but some of the folks that I've known for a long time, Ryan Casada is out there like waving the flag, doing the thing, doing the kind of folk punk heavy activist thing, and he's touring all over the place. He's really, and I've known him since he's a teenager. I'm so proud of him.
Yeah.
The first other trans singer-songwriter that I ever met when I was out touring is Nomaly Brennett. She has been putting out albums kind of quietly for years and touring. We high five on the highway as we were driving back and forth across the country.
Where will you be next?
I've got a tour in late August that'll be through the Midwest and ending in New York.
Nice.
I'll do a string of shows. Late August and early September, upper Midwest and ending in New York City. And I'm really just knuckling down on this Albert record. So I'm hoping to maybe have it out or certainly, show some of the progress on it throughout the year.
Nice.
We'll see when it fully comes together, but.
Oh, we're looking forward. And for people that want to follow you and get in touch with you and see where you are, or see you in places, give us all the things, give us all the handles.
I'm on the Instagram, I'm on the Facebook. It's usually Coyote Joe Stevens. Website is coyotejoestevens.com. And I've got a Substack that is almost published. Nice. So those are the main ways. That's
great. Well, we will definitely be looking out for you. And thank you again for just taking the time to honor an ancestor. And it's great to hear about you as an artist too. Good luck with everything. And we'll be watching.
Awesome. Thank you for having me and for your interest in the show.
Yeah. Thank you for being on.
I remember the first one, the very first.
I am a self-made man, born with my two hands. I've been waiting for so long to take a stand. I have no history. One day I just came to be. I barely know who I am.
What a gift it's been to spend time with Joe Stevens, an artist, a historian, and a truth teller, helping us remember that our stories didn't just begin. We've always been here. As we honor Military Appreciation Month, may we carry Albert Cashier's legacy with us as living proof of courage, authenticity, and the quiet power of choosing to be yourself no matter the cost. And to Joe, thank you for holding this story with such care and for making sure it continues to live, breathe, and reach us. To everyone listening, keep seeking, keep learning, keep showing up for one another. Our stories matter. Our histories matter. You matter. If this episode moved you, inspired you, or taught you something new, please take a moment to follow, like, and share Trans Heartbeat. It helps us keep amplifying these voices and building this community together. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.
I took to the road the other day. My city walls that crumble, fade away. Paid my respects by the waterside. It's where my God and my people reside. The sun it shines now all across the land, from the California waters to the shores of Maryland. The sun it shines now all across this world, but right now it is shining on a girl. And it's so bright, I would go blind. I said it's so bright, I would go blind.